She's just a child, my sister said, smirking. You don't even have kids, so give it to her. It's what family does. The room went still. My hands tightened around the house deed she'd just motioned at. My home. Paid in full. Earned with sleepless nights and 20 years of sacrifices they never bothered to ask about. I glanced at my niece, Danielle. 13. Already entitled, nose tilted at the world like it owed her an apology. She loves the garden, my sister added. Wouldn't it be nice for her to have somewhere to play after school? I was silent. Then I stood, walked to the cabinet, and retrieved the wrapped envelope I had prepared 2 months earlier. My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever stood in a room full of people you grew up with and realized you were the only one who saw through the game? My sister wanted my home. She just didn't want to ask like a decent human being. She wanted to guilt me into surrender. I mean, what's the point of you keeping it? She said, voice light, casual. It's just you. At least Danielle will have a future here. They all laughed like it was a toast. My mother, my aunt, even Danielle gave me a smug look, like I was being handed a chance to be noble, youthful. But I didn't argue. I simply smiled, walked over to the center of the room and placed the envelope on the table. You're right, I said calmly. Family takes care of family. Then I walked out without another word. Inside that envelope wasn't a deed transfer. It wasn't a will. It wasn't a gift. It was the notice of sale. My house had been on the market for 63 days. And that very morning it had sold. Cash buyer. Closing in 7 days. They wanted a castle for their golden child. I gave them an empty plot of dust and broken expectations. And that was just the beginning. Because what they didn't know. That sale funded the one thing they never saw coming, and it was already in motion. And this time they'd be the ones begging. You'd think they'd at least pretend to be happy for me. That maybe someone, my mom, my sister, even Danielle, would pick up the phone when I called later that week to explain. Instead, I got radio silence. Not anger. Not tears. Just an empty void like I never existed in the first place. That's the thing about people who treat you like a utility. The moment you stop being useful, they vanish. By Friday, my sister posted a cryptic Facebook status. Some people don't understand what real family means. Luckily, karma never misses. With a selfie of Danielle looking sad beside the garden swing. A swing I bought. Built. Painted lavender on a quiet Sunday morning while the world was still asleep. They didn't miss the house. They missed the free ride. My name was removed from the family group chat. My cousin texted me and said, "They're saying you sold it out of spite." I replied, "I sold it out of clarity." But the truth? Spite had nothing to do with it. What they never realized was that I had plans. And that house, my house, was the engine that was going to power something far bigger than a backyard for a spoiled teen. Because 3 months earlier I had gone to the doctor for a checkup. Routine blood work. 1 week later I was told my window was closing. I could still become a mother, barely. It would be expensive. It would be hard. It would take everything I had. And I said yes. I sold the house not to run but to build. To finally give everything I'd been pouring into others, to myself. But I knew that if I told them I was pursuing motherhood, on my own terms, they would have mocked it. They would have called me selfish. They would have found a way to taint it. So I didn't say a word. Instead, I quietly moved into a short-term rental across town and booked the first appointment with my fertility clinic. And as I sat in that clinic holding the receipt for the $62,000 procedure, fully paid from the house sale, my phone buzzed. It was my sister. "We need to talk. Urgently." Her voice sounded different. Panicked. And I just sipped my tea. Because I already knew. Their castle had started to crack. My phone rang again. Then again. Then a third time. That desperate repetition only meant one thing. They were in trouble. And somehow, as always, I was supposed to fix it. I let it go to voicemail. But curiosity got the better of me. So I listened. "Rachel, it's me." My sister's voice was tight like she was holding back tears. I messed up. "We need your help. Please call me back." There was. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "You were right." Just, "We need your help." My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because karma doesn't always hit like lightning. Sometimes it simmers. Then it spreads like fire under the floorboards. Until it's too late to run. I called her back 2 hours later. just long enough to let the urgency marinate. She picked up on the first ring. Rachel. Thank God. I didn't think you'd. What happened? I said flatly. Silence. Then the unraveling began. Turns out the new house they were moving into, the one my sister bragged about during every family dinner, the one Danielle had already posted about on TikTok, fell through. Their mortgage pre-approval had quietly expired while they were waiting for me to come to my senses. And without a down payment, they had nothing. No house. No contract. No backup plan. They had moved out of their old place 2 weeks early, assuming mine would be theirs by then. Now they were living out of suitcases at my aunt's. Danielle was sleeping on a pull-out couch. The garden swing was gone. So, what do you want from me? I asked. I don't know, she said, sounding like she was chewing glass. Help us. Just for now. Maybe a loan? Or if you could talk to the realtor and... I stopped her. You called me greedy. Selfish. She started crying. I have a child, Rachel. She's your niece. I know, I said. And she already believes the world belongs to her. Then I hung up. And that night, as I sat in my modest rented apartment, organizing the next step of my IVF process, I realized something. It wasn't just about the house. It was about removing the throne they built on my back. And watching what they did when no one was left to carry them. They didn't stop. When emotional guilt failed, they sent my mom. Rachel, she said, showing up unannounced at my apartment door like she still had the right. You're better than this. You're not like us. I nearly laughed. Because for years that's exactly what she punished me for. Not being like them. I raised you better, she said. You raised me to serve, I replied. But I grew out of it. My mom sighed and looked around my tiny living room, like the peeling paint on the window frame proved her point. Is this really where you want to live? She asked. It's not where I'm staying. It's where I'm starting. Her face twitched. She didn't understand. Because in her mind, value came from what you gave to others. And I wasn't giving anymore. My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because sometimes the deepest revenge isn't destruction. It's absence. It's letting them face their own reflection, without you there to distort it. A week later, I got a message from Danielle. No, hi. Just, you ruined my life. I'm 17 and homeless because of you. I hope you never have kids. And for a second, just a second, it stung. Because I knew what it was like to feel alone. To feel left behind. But then I remembered. Danielle wasn't a child. She was the golden girl who laughed when her mother mocked me. Who stood beside that house like it was hers. Who smiled when my sister said, Rachel doesn't need it. She doesn't even have a family. They forgot I was a human being. Not a placeholder. Not a spare womb. Not a walking well. So I blocked her. Kept going. Every appointment. Every hormone injection. Every grueling step toward a future that had nothing to do with pleasing people who only ever drained me. And then, the embryo took. It worked. I remember sitting alone in the clinic parking lot, hand on my belly, whispering, they'll never take you from me. But I didn't know then. That my sister had one final move. A move so vile, so manipulative. She was willing to use the court system. To claim I was mentally unfit to become a mother. Because I refused to support my family. And when that legal notice hit my mailbox, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just smiled. Because she had no idea who she'd just gone to war with. The legal notice was thin. Just 4 pages. But it might as well have been dipped in poison. Concerned for emotional instability. Pattern of isolating behavior. Refused familial support responsibilities. They called me unfit. As I said no. My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because when someone tries to weaponize the system against you, you learn just how sharp your own truth can be. I took the letter straight to my attorney. And he blinked twice as he read it. This is garbage. Are they serious? Oh, they were serious. But they were also sloppy. And in the court of law, receipts matter. I gathered mine. Every text message where they begged for the house. Every voice memo from my sister saying, you don't need it. Screenshots from Danielle's TikTok, prancing around my backyard calling it her future empire. I handed it all to my lawyer. And he said, let them come. And they did. At the hearing, my sister showed up in pearls. Danielle in a white dress as if innocence could be worn. My mother wouldn't even look at me. They spoke about community, about family responsibility, about how Rachel has always been different. And then it was my turn. I stood up, stomach barely showing but heart loud and ready. I'm not mentally unstable, I said. I'm just no longer available for abuse. The judge raised an eyebrow. I was the family secretary, the bank, the babysitter, the emotional trash can. I turned to them. And when I finally said no, they called it betrayal. The judge asked if I intended to co-parent. I said no, I intended to parent. Alone. And joyfully. He ruled in my favor. Swiftly. Firmly. But I wasn't done. Because I had found out something in the process. Danielle was enrolled in an elite private school under my address. They'd been using my property for years. To access schools, credit lines, even home insurance. I didn't press charges. Instead, I sent a quiet notice to the school board. Enrollment revoked. Scholarships canceled. And as Danielle sobbed about having to attend public school for kids with no futures, I sat in my living room, holding the sonogram, whispering, "You'll never be their pawn." And they were finally learning what it feels like when the woman you built your lives around walks away. 2 months passed. No calls. No knocks. Just silence. Which, in my family, was never peace. It was the wind-up before the next blow. My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because when people can no longer use you, they either disappear or they get dangerous. I was 6 months pregnant when the next stunt dropped. I was at work heading into a meeting when a coworker rushed up to me. "Hey, there's a post about you going around Facebook. It's bad." I froze. It was a smear campaign. My sister had posted a long sugar-coated essay about family betrayal and how I'd stolen a house meant for the next generation. She painted me as a bitter, lonely woman who couldn't handle seeing other people happy. And the comment section? Filled with church friends, old neighbors, people I hadn't seen in years. Such a shame. Rachel always was a little off. She never liked kids, right? Danielle deserved better. It didn't hurt because it was true. It hurt because it was strategic. They were trying to socially bury me before my baby was even born. But what they didn't know is that I'd been documenting everything. I didn't respond publicly. No dramatic replies. No comment wars. I simply went to an old friend, Julia, who now worked in media. I sent her everything. The legal filings, the eviction, the screenshots, the TikTok videos, the forged address for school enrollment. She said, "Are you ready for this to get loud?" I said, "They made me a villain. Let's show the full story." The article went live 2 days later. Headline: Woman called selfish by family, but documents reveal shocking exploitation. It exploded. Thousands of shares. Comments from strangers. Women who'd been disowned for saying no, who'd been guilted into giving everything. Suddenly, the tide turned. My sister's church dropped her from the hospitality committee. Danielle lost a college internship because of integrity concerns. My mom got disinvited from her bridge club. They tried to build their lives with my house, my money, my silence. But when I removed those bricks, their castle turned into a pile of glass. Me. I went to my 3rd ultrasound alone. But I wasn't lonely. Because for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Still, I knew one thing deep in my bones. They weren't finished yet. Desperate people rarely leave quietly. And their final trick. It would happen the week I gave birth. When I was most vulnerable. Most in love. Most unaware of what they were about to steal. I was still in my hospital gown when the nurse came in, confused. "Ms. Monroe, are you aware your discharge paperwork lists Danielle Miller as your emergency guardian?" My throat dried. I hadn't listed anyone. On purpose. My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because when you finally break free from people who used you, they don't just want distance. They want control. And this was war. I asked to see the form. And there was a signature in my handwriting. But not mine. Forged. They'd submitted it during check-in, probably when I was in labor. Claiming they were helping out. The nurses hadn't questioned it. Danielle was my niece, after all. And while I was sleeping off anesthesia, she had walked in, held my daughter, taken photos. Later I'd find them online. A post with my baby in her arms. Welcome our little blessing. Auntie will always protect you. And I swear my heart stopped. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just reached for my phone and called the one person they never expected. My father. He had left my mom when I was young. We barely spoke. He lived in Arizona, remarried, no kids. But I remembered something he'd said the one time we reconnected over coffee last year. If you ever need a lifeline, call. No judgment. He picked up on the first ring. I'm in trouble, I said. He was on a flight within hours. And when he arrived, he came armed. He was a retired prosecutor. And by the next morning, the hospital's legal team was involved. Cameras reviewed. Access logs checked. And suddenly, the nurses' faces changed when they looked at me, not with pity but with apologies. Danielle had used my driver's license, stolen from my purse during a family brunch weeks ago, to verify the fake form. The hospital fired 2 staff members. Security was doubled. And Danielle? She was escorted out with a no-contact order slapped in her hand. I pressed charges. Not for trespassing, but for identity theft. Because they didn't just try to steal my house. They tried to steal my motherhood. But they forgot something vital. I may not have had a family like theirs. But I'd just given birth to one of my own. And I would burn the earth before letting anyone rewrite my child's first chapter. The court date was set. And I had just one more surprise in store. For Danielle. For my sister. And for my mother, who funded the whole thing. Justice wasn't just coming. It was personal. The courtroom was cold. Not just from the AC, from the glares I got the moment I walked in. Danielle sat flanked by my mother and sister, their faces carefully painted in pastel sympathy. They clutched tissues like actresses at a funeral. But the judge didn't care for performances. And neither did I. My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the most dangerous people aren't strangers in the dark. They're the ones who smile while they gut you in daylight. Danielle pled not guilty. Claimed she was just confused. Said she thought the form was part of a family agreement. But I'd come with receipts. Exhibits A through J. Hospital footage. Text messages. Even the online photos she posted, which I'd had time-stamped and matched with camera records. But the final nail was a recorded voicemail my mother had left me the night before the birth. She didn't know I'd hit record when she called. Look, Rachel. Just let Danielle take the baby for a few months, okay? You're exhausted alone. Be realistic. Let someone younger raise her right. I played that in court. And when it ended, the silence was suffocating. Not even the judge blinked. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about controlling the narrative. The verdict? Danielle was found guilty of fraud and identity theft. Sentenced to 120 hours of community service and a year of probation. But the bigger blow? The court issued a permanent no-contact order for all 3 of them. They were banned from contacting me or my daughter in any form, physical or digital. They tried to steal my child. They ended up erased from her life completely. After court, I didn't gloat. I didn't throw confetti. I just went home, where her tiny hands waited to wrap around my finger again. Where peace didn't feel like silence, it felt like safety. My home was no longer a battlefield. It was a sanctuary. One they would never step foot in again. Sometimes revenge isn't fire. It's the quiet sound of a door locking behind you for good. And sometimes justice is raising your child in a house no one could take, surrounded by love they never earned, and walking away from blood that only knew how to bleed you. This time for once I chose me, and my daughter.